Let's go to former State Department official Christian Whiton to break all of this down. So it's a risky to fly commercial in that part of the world, isn't it?
It seems to be. Both Russia and Ukraine have experience, intentional and otherwise, in shooting down civilian airliners. And yeah, just a lot going on, a lot of unknown activities and questions. Some of the sort of Twitter detectives out there, ex-detectives, have spotted what looks like either bullet holes or shrapnels in the part of the fuselage in which people survived or were more likely to survive. But very unclear what's going on or what happened.
Yeah, so in his end-of-year news conference, the Russian President Vladimir Putin said that there would be no ceasefire in Ukraine, but the Russian foreign minister, however, expressed openness for a dialogue. Are the Russians now looking for an off-ramp, do you think, in 2025?
They've certainly been signaling for a long time they're willing to engage in what are pretty much unconditional negotiations, whereas Ukraine has had a bunch of, frankly, ludicrous preconditions even to talk, that Russia would have to give up all of the territory it has gained, including the Crimea, which just is never going to happen. So, you know, Putin has said that they're willing, previously that there's a willingness to talk, and Lavrov, the foreign minister, has said that negotiations could take place as long as they're realistic and also long-term. So he doesn't just want a ceasefire that freezes the conflict. He wants something that actually involves a resolution and probably involves the removal of U.S. sanctions.
Right. Well, so is this the Trump effect, though, that the fact that they are willing to do this, knowing that President like Trump will go after the main source of money for Russia, you know, and Iran, for that matter, their oil revenues?
It's possible to do that. It would be hard to sanction Russia more than is already taking place. President Trump has said that Keith Kellogg, the former national security advisor to Mike Pence, is going to be his Russia negotiator. But unfortunately, Kellogg doesn't actually have any experience negotiating. He has great experience in other areas. He was a combat soldier in Vietnam. He's a great analyst, probably belongs more at the White House. And you would need an experienced negotiator dealing with the Russians who are very frustrating. Maybe someone like Rick Grenell, who was an ambassador to Germany, an acting director of national intelligence for Trump, someone who's really going to get in there. I think the Russians are willing to talk, and I think they are concerned about what Trump might do. But I don't know if there's a quick fix. These could be prolonged negotiations that you know, really call for someone with a lot of stamina and understanding of what Russia really wants and what Ukraine might accept.
Well, let's bring this back to the markets. The markets need stability. You know, are we looking at, do you believe, the end of conflicts, many of them, maybe not all of them, in 2025, and could it really happen?
I wouldn't bank on that, no. You know, we sort of have the assumption that Russia actually does want an end to this war quickly, but the flip side of that coin is they're winning slowly. They're gradually gaining more territory. They have a central banker. If she were a central banker anywhere other than Russia, she would have a Nobel Prize in economics. The way they've managed to keep their economy afloat despite U.S. and U.K.-led sanctions, which incidentally have raised the price of energy on Americans. So, you know, we assume that they want a deal badly. They signal that, but I don't know. If you go back to Vietnam and the amount of time it took to negotiate over what in the end weren't huge changes from the beginning to the end, it took years. This is why my advice, if anyone's listening, is I wouldn't stake the success of a second Trump term on success in Ukraine. This may take a long time. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But I think it'll go on for a while. And just as you talked about markets, I think energy markets will probably be stable. Trump and his Treasury Secretary incoming have talked about adding 3 million barrels per day in U.S. production over the course of administration. That should be helpful. It should bring down the price of energy and also increase U.S. export revenues.
So in the last 30 seconds, I mean, talk about President-elect Trump's strategy of using the economic might of the U.S. to enact his foreign policy.
Right, and we're already seeing that, and I think we're already seeing its benefits, especially with U.S., Canada, and Mexico. The Canadian Prime Minister, probably on his way out, but basically came and supplicated to Trump at Mar-a-Lago, and I think will hopefully start cleaning up their act with fentanyl exports coming out of Canada and some of their other unfair trade practices. Mexico, too. And then it's a question of whether Trump wants to focus on Europe or China, both of which have unfair trade arrangements with us. So I think you'll see tariffs, and I think you'll see threats, and I think you'll see renegotiations negotiated agreements. But at the end of the day, you're going to have a renaissance of manufacturing in the U.S., and the tax cuts that he will make permanent will create a supply-side expansion in the U.S. that obviates or takes away any inflationary pressure. So long-term prospects, I think, are pretty good.
Well, we know in his first term, he created a number of one-on-one trade deals with various countries. So maybe he'll work on that in the second term there. So, Christian Whiton, I appreciate it. Thank you for your insight on this.